As the country's economy continues to shrink amid the coronavirus pandemic and nationwide lockdown, poverty remains the biggest challenge in the Eastern Cape. Residents of the small town of Klipplaat in the Karoo say their situation has worsened. Many in the area have lost their jobs due to the drought, and the COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the situation. The little town has just over 3,000 residents, with many people living with chronic illnesses such as HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis and diabetes. But for more on the story, let's cross live to our reporter, Lerato Fekisi. Lerato, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, poverty remains the biggest challenge in the Eastern Cape. Tell us more about this.
Without a doubt, Simpiwe, we travelled to Klipplaat, myself and my colleague Natasha Makuntulu 2 days ago, and we went to profile the small town of Klipplaat, which is about 2 hours outside of P. And Simpiwe, you know what poverty is. You see it in the times in our surroundings, but to come into Klipplaat and see the devastation there in a way I've never experienced before. I mean, you drive into the town, Simpiwe, and it literally is like a ghost town. And as you drive in, you see the signs of poverty, from dilapidated buildings. They don't have any services. There is no post office. There is no shop. Simpiwe is a cafe which 1,000 people. The closest town they have to get big groceries is Janssenville, which is about 100 km of Klipplaat, and to travel there is a hefty price for people. We stopped Simpiwe literally every 5 minutes. There was someone asking me just five to get food on the table. Two interesting people that for us actually painted the raw image of what. An elderly lady by the name of who was speaking about the health conditions in that area. She has a chronic disease, and she says that so anytime she gets sick, she has to hope ambulance will come. When and if it does, has to travel 100 kilometers to Janssenville, where she gets medical help. She then has to walk every location from a local clinic where there isn't a doctor. Unemployment is rife, that the majority the only source of income in Simpiwe is social grants. But what makes it worse for me, what makes it painful, is that when that money does come in, half of it is actually going towards loan sharks, because there isn't enough of the social grants to last. The fourth week comes, they have to go to loan sharks to make money. There is absolutely nothing. One school, Simpiwe, one high school, and we heard from a young person saying that last year, of all the their own, the others dropped out and fell by the wayside. So in every single sector, education, health, basic services, absolutely nothing. There is a soup kitchen that's trying to bring much needed relief area, but it is also struggling. It is renting the building it has occupying right, feeding over 500 people a meal a day, but without proper resources, it's become unsustainable. We also local nurse who was the one helping us to navigate our way throughout the town, and she was saying she has never in her life seen so much poverty, so much so that when patients come to the clinic, especially patients with diabetes, why are they taking so long to recover? Nurse was practiced for such a long time, and when you give a patient who's got diabetes insulin, they recover. But she says that only after some time, because of the shame poverty brings to people, they then begin to open up, and as they begin to open up, they begin to tell you that, you know what, I insert insulin into my body with no food. And that is why the recovery rate in terms of HIV and AIDS, the recovery rate in terms of diabetes, because these people are taking medication, very strong medication for these diseases on an infant. She says poverty is the #1 problem in the municipality steps up, provides services, provides good health, a good education system, and above all, beyond social grants, provides sustainable skills development programs so that these people can be self-empowered and take themselves out of poverty. The situation in the town is going to be the same. So they call themselves Simpiwe the forgotten Eastern Cape. They call themselves the neglected, the unloved, because no one comes there. It's such a small area, you literally can just forget it because it's on your way to what people here call themselves the unforgotten. No one knows about them because they are to that, Simpiwe.
And Lerato, I would imagine that the community still hasn't fully recovered from the devastating drought and the problem of debilitating disease. We've mentioned, diabetes as a case in point, still remains in the midst of the community. And now there's the coronavirus pandemic. Just what has been the impact of this virus in the Karoo and areas near Klipplaat?
The devastating part about Klipplaat is that the majority of people here there depend on the farming community in and around Klipplaat. And because, like you said, the drought that has been there since 2016, that has made things worse, because if you don't have a job in Klipplaat, the best bet is to farming area. Now, that is closed and there's a drought and there's no income coming from there, opportunities coming from there. Really, farmers are saying, you know what? As farmers, we are struggling themselves. We saw really an unforgettable sight where gift-givers came to give fodder to the farmers, and then farmers said, "You food on our table. You want food parcels as well." And then the gift-givers actually ended up giving food parcels to the farmers. So you saw a flip of both coins, where you saw farmers who were needing food for their animals saying, "You know what? I can't employ as many people as possible," and hungry because the drought has crippled us as that bad as well. In terms of the coronavirus, to our surprise, when we spoke to the nurses, is that there actually wasn't coronavirus in the area, which was a shock to us. And she said that, I guess, the people were really much complying to the rules and regulations of COVID-19, and it wasn't really badly hit by COVID-19. But I think the most devastating part of this area is the drought, which is crippling the farming area, which is the hugest and only economic driver in this area. It really is devastating. It is dry. The animals are dying every single day, which is a livelihood for people in this area. Simpiwe.
Now, Lerato, you've just mentioned that they call themselves the forgotten community. What has the government said about their plight in Klipplaat?
In 2009, Simpiwe, there was a sustainable project and funding given by social development to start farms and other sustainable projects in this area. But when you went back to those farming areas and when you went back to those projects, that actually have not been followed up. The government said that they are aware of what's happening in that area and they're going to do what they can to try and assist the people in the area. But when I went back to the people, they said that for a long time they've been saying the same thing. So there's so much vacant land in Klipplaat. You wonder why in all these years since 2009 nothing has been done to build basic services such as hospitals, when there is so much scarce land that could be used. So when you went back to town, the municipality said, you know what, they're going to help. They said, Lord, you know what, it's the same thing over and over again, promises after promises, and nothing gets done. There is so much land here. There is so much that we as the people can do here, because the people, they are farming area, they've got the skills, they can farm the land, there is land there for them to farm, but nothing has been done for them. And without any assistance or any other resources or no money from government, they can't do nothing. So although the government has promised to assist this area, the people there say they don't have any hope that the government will do anything, because they've been asking and pleading, and to date nothing has been done. Simpiwe.
Lerato, thank you so much for opening our eyes to the harsh realities that the residents of Klipplaat have to grapple with on a daily basis. We do appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go for now.
Thanks.
All right, that was our reporter Lerato Fekisi, just painting a picture of what the situation is in Klipplaat in the Eastern Cape with regards to the poverty levels there, and which are so bad. I mean, children are eating out of dustbins. And in 2009, she just mentioned that the rural town received social development funding for sustainable projects. But years later, none of those projects is operational, and unemployment has plummeted and exacerbated by this devastating drought.
Back in the early 1940s, the small rural town used to be a major railway junction with beaming steam engines transporting wool and mohair from the farms in this area to Port Elizabeth and Graaff-Reinet. Many years later, it is a sorry sight, with poverty evident the moment you drive in. Klipplaat today is like any town in drought-stricken rural Eastern Cape. Underdeveloped, dilapidated buildings on every corner, dirt on the streets, lifeless and a ghost town. Poverty and unemployment is rife. Basic services such as water and electricity, a luxury. Somebody who knows this all too well is 8-year-old Buyelwa Majali. She was born here and throughout the years has seen the once prime tourist destination become a sorry sight. She lives in the small house alone and relies on social grants to get by. She has a chronic illness that needs medication monthly. With only one clinic operational, she has to walk miles to pick up her pills. A nearest doctor is an hour away.
There is no medical doctor here, and that is a huge problem. And it's something that we have been fighting for years. When I'm sick, I have to be taken all the way to Grafrenet to get help. We have to take the ambulance to get there. Sometimes it arrives, sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't, you just stay at home and only hope you will get better and not die.
Nearby 31-year-old single mother Louise Williams lives here with her 2 children. The only source of income she has is a social grant. She only gets half of it. After paying loan sharks, she's left with close to nothing.
And because I was not 3 weeks, I feared the because I'm a black.
The money that I get from the grants only lasts me for 3 weeks. In the last week of the month, it is really tough and we struggle. I have to buy everything for these kids, food, clothes, and still run the house. It's really so hard. Worst part is that the loan shark takes half of that money when it comes in, so I really don't have much to get by. It's so tough, at times we sleep with just a slice of bread. If only we could get jobs, life would be better.
There's only a police station and no post office, shops or any other service centres. This small cafe services more than 3,000 people. The closest town is Janssenville, which costs 80 rand to get there and back. A hefty price for the majority of people here who have no income. But there is a lifeline, a soup kitchen which provides a meal a day to over 500 people. It also runs a skills development workshop. But without their own place, it's become unsustainable.
The reason why we started this soup kitchen here in Klipplaat is that we saw the poverty in this area. We help a lot of school kids. As early as 1 o'clock, the kids rush to get here because for most of them, this is the only plate of food they will get until the next day. If we could just get a proper place to teach these young people skills, they could take these skills and then be able to be self-sufficient and help themselves to stop the poverty in their families.
There is only one school with a pass rate close to 0. Last year, only 1 matric pupil passed. The others dropped out.
The daily lifestyle here in Klipplaat is not any lifestyle that you would wish to live in, because as a youth, speaking for the youth, I would say that there isn't enough resources for us as youth to study further. And the other thing is our school is very poor, pulverized, and the reason why the youth of the school, most of them drop out of school, is because the school is not equipped enough for all of us, and the children drop out as to the reasons of educators not being here at the school, and the educators drop out due to the children being rude. And as you can see here, there isn't even proper infrastructure, as you could have seen as you've came in here. And the other thing is the youth is like in the drugs, like for real in the drugs. It's dacha, it's stuck, it's everything.
However, even though dusty and dry, the town was once thriving with an important railway junction between Port Elizabeth and Grafrenet, including a link to Oudtshoorn via Willowmore. Someone who lived during the time when the railway was the heartbeat of the town is 70-year-old Nicholas Singeni. Sadly, he says, the town has lost its former luster.
This town is not what it used to be. There is no order in this place anymore. Even the water is so bad. I wish they could send people to come and test the water. It has a very horrible smell, and we are not sure why the water is like this. I've noticed that the municipality doesn't clean the dam. Hence the water smells so bad. So much so that we can't use the water. That's the sad life we live here. Everything is being vandalized. This town used to be so pretty, but now it is run down and a sorry sight.
Most people here have chronic illnesses such as HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis and diabetes. Unfortunately, because most are unemployed, a proper diet is not common, making things tough for the nurses in this area.
Now what is happening with them, they come, they have not eaten, they inject anyway. And it takes time, and then you are so concerned that, I thought this dosage was doing well, why now? And a person would be not knowing what is happening, sometimes is comatose, and now you don't know what to do. And after some time, then you realize that in fact this person was put on the wrong medication in the first place, because the insulin is now making things worse. And it's not easy. The story of poverty is not easy to get it on the first visit or the second visit. You need to be knowing the pattern of how this person is doing things. Sometimes people are shy to can say what exactly has happened. But now, as you get used to your patients, they happen to be able to confide. And in most instances, you realize that once you sort of try and turn that story of being destitute and of not having food, and sometimes then we realize this person is post 60 years, or this person is staying with some orphans, or is staying, all those things which they are not aware that government does assist in conditions like that. And it's only then that when they get the grant and they sort of, there is some food at home, then you begin to see the improvement in their state. But that help of the grant is just but a tiny little bit. It's not sustaining the family, it's not sustaining a sick person, as you would know. It is fine for a person who's not ill, but for somebody who has to eat like a diabetic person, it is very difficult.
The residents here have lost hope. They live on handouts as and when Good Samaritans stop by with food parcels. They are pleading with the municipality to use vacant land to build service centres and recreational facilities to become self-sufficient. Lerato Fekisi, SABC News, Klipplaat.